Divorce betrayal story. I found out my husband was leaving me, so I moved my $500 million fortune first. Ever wonder how a single text can flip your whole life upside down? I'm Emily Dawson, and this is how I turned betrayal into a $1 billion comeback in just 7 days. Emily Dawson had always believed she was living the dream. A best-selling author with a calm soul, she made her home in a sleek Tribeca penthouse that overlooked the beating heart of Manhattan. At 39, she wasn't just successful, she was adored. Her readers hung on her every word. Her neighbors greeted her with admiration. And her husband, oh, Jason Dawson, the polished Wall Street consultant with the dimpled smile and crisp tailored suits. The man who whispered sweet nothings into her ear every night before bed like it was scripted straight from a rom-com. "You're everything to me, Em." He said it often enough, she started to believe it like gospel. But even perfect pictures can crack. It started on a Tuesday night, cold, drizzly. The kind of night that made New Yorkers cuddle closer and turn the fireplace up just a notch higher. Emily had gone to bed early, a rare break from her usual late-night writing ritual. Around midnight, she stirred awake. Jason wasn't beside her. She listened. The apartment was quiet, but not completely. Soft murmurs drifted from his office down the hall. She pulled on her robe and stepped out, her bare feet silent against the hardwood floor. Jason's door was cracked open, just enough for her to see him standing near the window, phone pressed to his ear, his voice low and deliberate. "She doesn't suspect anything. It'll be done by next week." Emily froze. The air turned thick in her lungs. Her heart thudded hard, like it was trying to punch its way out of her chest. She inched back into the shadows, careful not to make a sound. Back in bed, she lay stiff as stone. Jason returned 15 minutes later, slipped in beside her, and kissed her shoulder. "Sleep okay?" he asked casually. "Mm-hmm," she mumbled. But sleep? That was gone now. The next morning, she brewed her coffee stronger than usual. The sun was up, the city buzzing as always. But inside Emily, a quiet storm had begun. She wasn't the paranoid type. She hated drama. But that voice, that whisper in the dark, it wasn't just Jason being vague. It was calculated, cold, and he was talking about her. Still, she didn't confront him. Not yet. She smiled through breakfast, joked about his mismatched socks, and asked about his meetings. Jason was smooth as ever, charming, even flirtier than usual, almost like he was overcompensating. And that was when she knew. Whatever he was hiding, it was big. But Emily Dawson wasn't going to be the clueless wife in some cliché betrayal story. She was going to be the storm. Emily had always trusted Jason with everything, not just her heart, but her finances, her peace of mind, her very sense of safety. So when the seed of doubt was planted, that cold Tuesday night, it took everything in her not to let it bloom into full-blown panic. She needed facts, not feelings. The next morning, while Jason was in the shower, humming his favorite Springsteen tune, Emily made her move. She went to his office. The room was immaculate, like always. Jason was obsessive about order, every document labeled, every cable tied. But he didn't expect her to snoop. He never did. That was his first mistake. Her hands trembled as she turned on his laptop. The screen blinked to life, and to her surprise, it wasn't password protected. Arrogance, she thought, or maybe overconfidence. His email was open. She scanned quickly. Meeting confirmations, stock reports, a dinner reservation at Le Bernardin she hadn't been told about, and then she found it. A spreadsheet labeled Asset Distribution Q2 Contingency Plan. Emily's breath caught. Her eyes darted across the sheet. Account numbers, property titles, stock allocations. Her name was on some. Others were missing. One note chilled her. Liquidate joint holdings discreetly. Prepare offshore transfer if negotiations stall. Negotiations? With who? Her? She barely had time to screenshot everything before she heard the water stop. She closed the laptop, heart hammering like a war drum. The rest of the day, she played the role of loving wife. Jason kissed her cheek before leaving for work, promised to be back by 7, and left like nothing had changed. But for Emily, everything had. That afternoon, she did something she hadn't done in over 10 years. She logged into their joint investment portal. Jason had always managed the money, not because she wasn't smart. Emily was a published author with a sharp mind, but because she trusted him. Big mistake. Transactions popped up like flashing red alarms. Over the past 3 months, Jason had been quietly siphoning off funds, small enough to avoid notice, but steady enough to add up. $50,000 here, $30,000 there. A total of nearly $600,000 funneled into an account she'd never heard of. She checked credit card statements next. Charges for upscale restaurants, a luxury boutique in Soho, and something called Ilium Consulting, $25,000 billed just last week. That night, she confronted him, or at least tested him. "Hey, babe," she said, as he poured them both a glass of wine. "Did you ever end up moving some of our investment funds? I noticed a few withdrawals." Jason barely flinched. "Just some minor reallocations," he said smoothly. "I've been diversifying us a bit, given the market. I should have mentioned it. Sorry, babe." He kissed her temple. But his eyes? They didn't smile. Emily nodded, hiding the storm brewing beneath her skin. She didn't press. She couldn't. Not yet. Instead, she started planning. The next few days passed like a surreal performance. Jason carried on like nothing was wrong. He laughed with her, brought her flowers, even suggested a weekend getaway to the Hamptons. Classic deflection. But Emily watched, listened, waited. Then, on a rainy Thursday morning, fate handed her the final puzzle piece. Jason left his phone behind. He never did that. The man practically slept with it. But in his rush to hop into the shower, he forgot it on the nightstand. Emily hesitated just a second before unlocking it. Jason, ever the creature of habit, still used her birthday as his passcode. The message that greeted her was from a contact labeled simply G. "Send her the Ilium docs this weekend. She needs to stay in the dark till then. Timing is critical." That was it. The final confirmation. Jason wasn't just thinking about leaving her. He was orchestrating a silent financial ambush. And she had 1 week, maybe less, before he pulled the trigger. But what Jason didn't know was that Emily was already loading the gun herself. Emily had always believed in love, but now she believed in lawyers. The morning after reading the message from G, Emily brewed her strongest cup of coffee. She pulled out her old college yearbook and flipped straight to a page she hadn't looked at in years. Amanda Keller, roommate, fierce debater, sharp-tongued law major who once said, "If a man's hiding something, there's always a paper trail, and I know how to find it." They hadn't spoken in nearly 8 years. Emily picked up the phone. "Em?" Amanda's voice came through, a little groggy. "Wow, this is unexpected. What's up?" "I think Jason's planning to divorce me and steal everything we built." That got Amanda's attention. Within the hour, Amanda was in Emily's apartment. Still in jeans and a blazer, she looked like she hadn't changed since law school. Except now, she had the confidence of a woman who'd made senior partner at a trust and estates firm in Manhattan. Emily laid it all out. The spreadsheet, the bank records, the suspicious messages. Amanda didn't blink. "I hope you're ready to make moves. Fast ones. Amanda said, setting down her coffee. This isn't just a messy divorce. This is a financial hit job. And you, my friend, are the target. Emily nodded. So what do we do? Amanda cracked her knuckles. We protect the empire. Within 48 hours, the operation was in full swing. Step 1, freeze the vulnerability. Amanda helped Emily create a new LLC and immediately moved all intellectual property, Emily's book rights, royalties, and pending deals into it. Jason wouldn't be able to touch a dime. Step 2, lock the assets. They met with a discreet private banker who helped shift $500 million into a trust solely under Emily's control. With airtight terms, no withdrawals, no changes without her personal sign-off and biometric confirmation. Step 3, move the real estate. The penthouse, retitled under the trust's name. Their vacation house in the Catskills, already transferred. Every property went through a legal cleanse, removing Jason's name from anything that wasn't contractually locked down. Step 4, change the battlefield. Amanda advised her to set up jurisdiction preference in Connecticut, where Emily owned a small estate. The divorce, when it hit, would be judged under Connecticut's spousal equity laws, far more favorable to the spouse being blindsided. Each night, Emily returned home exhausted, but invigorated. She hadn't felt this powerful in years. She was quiet, cold, calculated. She cooked dinner, asked Jason about his work, laughed when he made bad jokes. He never suspected a thing. One night, Jason even wrapped his arms around her in the kitchen and whispered, "I feel like we're finally back on track again." Emily kissed his cheek. She wanted to scream. On Friday, just before midnight, Amanda called. "It's done. Everything is now under your name or protected by the trust. If Jason files for divorce tomorrow, he walks away with exactly nothing he didn't earn." Emily closed her eyes and let the words sink in. Not revenge, preparation. This wasn't about destroying him. It was about not letting him destroy her. She had 7 days. Jason didn't know it, but his plan had just unraveled before he could sign the first page of the divorce papers. Emily had taken back control, and now she was ready for whatever came next. When he thought he'd won, but I'd already moved everything. It happened on a Sunday evening, sunset bleeding into the Hudson. Emily was lighting a candle in the living room, the scent of sandalwood curling into the air, when Jason walked in with a smirk carved onto his face, like a villain in a courtroom drama. She knew that look. Something was coming. He dropped a manila envelope on the marble counter with a casual flick of the wrist. Emily raised an eyebrow. "What's this?" Jason straightened his cuffs, grinning like he'd just won a game only he knew they were playing. "Just something I've been meaning to discuss. It's time we have an honest conversation. I think we've outgrown each other, don't you?" he said, his tone laced with manufactured empathy. "It's been coming for a while." Emily stared at the envelope. Thick, intentional, final. Divorce papers. She could almost hear Amanda's voice echoing in her ear. Stay calm, smile, then strike. She lifted the envelope, opened it, and skimmed the contents like she was reading a grocery list. Jason stood there, arms crossed, watching, waiting, for her to cry, scream, beg. Instead, she smiled. "Interesting timing," she said, placing the papers neatly on the counter. "Because I just moved every asset into my name 3 days ago. You're not getting a cent." Jason blinked. "What?" She walked around the kitchen island, slowly, deliberately, like a queen addressing a dethroned king. "The royalties, The trust fund, the properties, all gone from your reach, she said calmly. The business, the book deals, not yours to touch anymore. You can't do that, he said, voice cracking, anger slowly seeping in. That's our money. Emily tilted her head. Correction, it was ours. Now it's mine. Because while you were busy plotting behind my back, I was securing my future. His smirk disappeared. That's illegal. Amanda Keller's behind this, isn't she? I'll sue you both. Emily leaned in, just slightly, her voice soft but lethal. You forgot who you married, Jason. I write stories for a living, but this time I wrote the ending. And it wasn't the one he planned. Jason stormed out that night. No slamming doors, no final threats, just silence. But Emily knew the silence was only temporary. Men like Jason didn't go down quietly. The next day, it began. Posts started popping up on anonymous finance forums, accusations that Emily had embezzled funds from her publishing company, claims that she'd used Jason's name to funnel money into shell corporations. False, all of it. But in the age of digital whispers, lies travel faster than truth. Emails from brand partners slowed. A lucrative speaking engagement was postponed indefinitely. Her inbox flooded with questions. The betrayal wasn't just personal anymore. Jason was trying to destroy her reputation. But Emily wasn't scared, because she still had the ace Amanda helped her build, and she was about to play it. By Tuesday morning, the internet was on fire. Reddit threads, whisper pages, private Facebook groups full of finance bros and anonymous gossip accounts. All of them buzzing with whispers about that rich author from Tribeca who stole millions. Screenshots, fake invoices, claims that Emily had funneled joint funds into offshore accounts without her husband's knowledge. The posts were vague, almost strategic. Nothing concrete, but enough to raise eyebrows. And worse, some of her clients, friends, even her publisher, were starting to distance themselves. Emily sat at her kitchen table, scrolling through it all, her jaw tight, her heart steady. This wasn't panic. It was fuel. She picked up her phone and called Amanda. "He's trying to destroy me online," Emily said flatly. Amanda didn't miss a beat. "Then we destroy him, legally." Within 48 hours, Amanda filed a defamation suit against Jason Dawson in New York Supreme Court. The charges were brutal and precise. Public slander, malicious intent to sabotage business relations, reputational damage. Included in the filing? Screenshots of anonymous posts traced back to IP addresses registered under Jason's name. Messages Jason had sent to fake accounts. Even audio snippets Emily had secretly recorded, Jason bragging to a friend on speakerphone about how he was going to bury her online. It was the kind of case that got headlines. The media flipped. From Emily Dawson accused of fraud to Emily Dawson strikes back with multi-million-dollar lawsuit against ex-husband. And just like that, the tide turned. Jason, now cornered, tried to go on the defensive. He gave interviews, claimed victimhood, played the sympathetic, devastated husband card. He wore wrinkled shirts and fake tearful expressions, talking about betrayal and heartbreak, but it didn't work. The evidence was too solid. The paper trail, too clean. And Amanda, ruthless in court. Every lie Jason posted, every anonymous comment, every shady transaction he'd authorized, it all came back to haunt him. By the end of the second court hearing, the judge had seen enough. Not only has Mr. Dawson failed to prove defamation, the judge ruled, he has actively participated in a digital smear campaign and will be held liable for damages and all legal fees incurred. Boom. Just like that, Jason lost again. He stormed out of the courtroom like a child denied a toy. Emily didn't look at him. She just stood up, smoothed her coat, and walked out, with Amanda at her side. Graceful, silent, untouchable. That night, Amanda raised a glass of wine across from her. "To you," Amanda said, "you didn't just survive, you outplayed him on every front." Emily smiled. "Not revenge," she said softly, "just justice." But deep down, she knew Jason wasn't done. Men like him never give up until they're completely dismantled. And if he wanted war, he was about to get the final battle. 3 weeks. That's how long the silence lasted before the real storm hit. Emily thought the defamation case was the worst of it, that she'd seen Jason at his most dangerous. But Jason, he had one more card to play. One so dark, so vicious, it nearly cost her everything. It started with a knock on her door. Federal agents. 2 men in dark suits stood under the dim light of her Tribeca hallway, with badges, cold eyes, and a warrant. "Emily Dawson, you're under investigation for federal wire fraud and financial conspiracy. We need to confiscate your devices and all financial records from the last 6 years." Her world tilted. This wasn't gossip. This was the FBI. Overnight, the story exploded. Author Emily Dawson under federal investigation. $500 million fortune possibly tied to fraud. Emily's team scrambled. Amanda nearly threw her phone through a wall. The trust was intact, but the real threat now wasn't about money. It was her freedom. The evidence looked real. Emails implicating Emily, voicemails doctored to sound like she was authorizing hidden accounts, bank records stamped, signed, sealed. Except one thing was off. None of it was real. Amanda brought in a digital forensics team. Emily paid in cash. Discreet, urgent. Within days, they cracked it. Jason had created a digital clone of Emily's email account. He used AI voice tools to fake calls. Even the documents, carefully forged to mirror her style, contained microscopic inconsistencies. The signature pressure patterns didn't match. The timestamps were edited. Worse, they found the smoking gun, a surveillance cam near a mailbox Jason didn't know existed. Footage showed him, and G, the fixer, dropping off documents and using a burner laptop from a co-working space downtown. The FBI was looped in. Suddenly, the tide flipped. Jason was arrested at 6:42 p.m. on a Thursday. Fraud, evidence tampering, perjury, conspiracy to commit digital identity theft. He didn't go quietly. Screamed about being set up, about being the real victim. But the cuffs didn't care. In court, the prosecutors read the charges aloud, like nails in a coffin. Emily sat in the gallery, not as a defendant, as a witness. As the survivor of a man who'd tried to erase her existence. And when the judge declared Jason guilty on all counts, sentencing him to 9 years in federal prison, she didn't cheer. She just exhaled, quietly. Like someone who had been underwater for far too long, finally breaking the surface. The courthouse doors closed behind her with a dull thud. No cameras, no flashes, no crowds. Just the hum of a city that had already moved on. Emily walked down the stone steps, slowly, wrapped in a wool coat, clutching a notebook instead of a victory speech. Jason was gone. 9 years in federal prison, 2 more under probation. His assets frozen, his reputation destroyed by his own hand. But Emily didn't feel victorious. She felt free. And freedom wasn't loud. It was quiet. It was waking up without checking headlines, writing without fear of being erased, sitting at Central Park with a coffee and watching the world move without it watching her back. She moved out of Tribeca, bought a brownstone in Brooklyn Heights. Smaller, older, it creaked when she walked, and she loved it for that very reason. Imperfect, real. Amanda stayed in her life, not as a lawyer now, but as a friend. They had brunch every other Sunday, laughed about the absurdity of how life could flip, how one whisper in the dark had nearly ended everything. And yet, it hadn't. Emily released a new book a year later, The Storm Before the Still, a memoir. She didn't name names, didn't write for revenge. She wrote for the women who had been silenced, erased, gaslit, or made to feel less than because they dared to rise. The book hit #1 in 5 days. She received letters, thousands, from women who had escaped toxic marriages, others who never had the words until now. Emily read every single one, and on stage, at her first live reading, she ended with this: "They say revenge is best served cold, but me, I prefer peace. And peace, my friends, is best served earned." The crowd stood. Some cried, some clapped, and some just understood. Emily didn't need a war anymore. She had already won the only battle that ever mattered, the one to reclaim herself.